Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our special presentation today with poet Yesika Salgado. My name is Patty Lopez, and I'm the Principal Librarian for the Adult Services Department here at the Santa Ana Public Library. In our presentation today is the rest of our Adult Services team, Olga Morphew.
Hello, everyone, and welcome.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us here today. Yes, my name is Melly Frentato. I am the library assistant here at the Santa Ana Public Library, and I am so proud and honored to be able to introduce this incredible poet today in celebration of National Poetry Month. She is not only a social media sensation, but the winner of the 2020 International Latino Book Award and a fierce advocate for her community. She's appeared in the LA Times, NPR, Univision, and so much more, and we're so blessed to be able to have her here with us today and read from each of her incredible works. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Yesika Salgado.
Able to do a book release in LA at our big library, and it's one of my favorite places to perform, and librarians always take such good care of me whenever I come through. So it's so happy to be here, and I can't wait to have the opportunity to be in person with y'all in the near future. Maybe there's habladitas de eso. So I think I'm gonna jump straight into the poetry. Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna share. So in 2016, I took the leap and I quit my job at CVS. I was a cashier, and I said, it just feels like it was 2017. 2016. It was the end of the year, and I've been a writer my whole life. I am a high school dropout, and I say this because I think it's important for folks to know that not every writer has an MFA. Not every writer took the traditional route, and that's fine and that's okay, and we could all share like similar levels of success, even if we didn't take the academic avenue that tends to gatekeep a lot of things, and institutions that tend to keep people that look like me outside of a lot of those things. Anyway, I could go on forever about that and how I feel about those things, but I'm not. But that being said, in 2016, I quit my job at CVS, and I was just like, you know what? Why not now? Why not jump and we'll see what happens? I quit in October, and by March of the next year, I had my book deal to publish Corazon. And so Corazon came out in 2017. And so after I put out Corazon, I said, you know what? I've been writing poems my whole life. Most of the poems in Corazon already existed. I just had to piece them together. But I still had so many poems that didn't fit into this specific story I was telling in Corazon, which asked the question, am I worthy of love? Like romantic love, self-love. And then it answers the question of like, duh. And so then I published Tesoro, which is my second book. And Tesoro is an excavation of what my family has survived, specifically the woman, and how their survival has shaped me into the woman that I am, and what I've survived and what I've lived and what I've made it through. So Tesoro was my second book, and Tesoro was published in 2018, exactly a year after. And because I am an ambitious woman, I said, why don't we do another book exactly a year later? And in the fall of 2019, I released Hermosa. And Hermosa is my selfish book. It's how you spoil your youngest. That is Hermosa. I specifically, the poems in Hermosa are just who I was exactly when I was putting her together, and kind of celebrating everything that's come. And also, when I first released Corazon, it was a question of, am I worthy of being published? Am I worthy of being read? And by the time that Hermosa came around, I knew that I was worthy of that. And so I just had to kind of like seal this trilogy that I did, and move on to my next project, which we'll see when that one comes out. But I am writing a fourth book that's very different than these three, but it is still something. It's still poems, and that one's gonna be called Mentirosa. So Corazon is titled Corazon. I picked the title for Corazon before I even knew what Corazon was gonna be. I knew that my first book was gonna be named Corazon because Sandra Cisneros, I call her mi madrina, although I've never met her. She did share my book on Instagram though, so we know each other. we're best friends. But Andres Cisneros has a book called Caramelo, and it's easily one of my favorite books, if not my favorite novel. And I've lost it like 3 times. I've given it away. It's gotten damaged by water. I think I've bought the book like 8 times over and over and over to give as gifts or for myself. And her book is called Caramelo, and I was just like, well, I'm gonna name my book Corazon. And I don't know, and I thought it was gonna be this like novel. I'm not a novelist. I tried. I'm not a novelist. I even have Corazon tattooed on my arm, and it's because it's what my dad used to call me when he was in a good mood, when he was happy, when he was being tender and sweet. And yeah, so I'm gonna read a couple of poems from Corazon, and then we're gonna read poems from from Tesoro and Hermosa, and we're gonna build out the story. I can see your comments on the side, so if you want to share anything, if anything resonates with you or whatever, go ahead and comment. Go ahead and type. I'm looking at the chat while I can multitask. Okay, so the first poem in Corazon is called Jenny and I. Jenny is my sister. I'm the oldest. Jennifer's the second, and Jaleesa's the third. Um, and Jennifer and I are only a year and a half apart, so we lived a lot of like our adolescence together. And Jaleesa was too little playing with toys, and I was just like, get away from me. But but Jenny is also the mother of my beautiful niece and nephew, Saya and Henry. And if you notice, all 3 of my books are dedicated to some variation of them. And so here we go. Mangoes, the green ones. We used stones or large sticks to knock them from their branches. We would sit and eat then and there, our small buckets on our laps, a bag of salt between us. The cows and their large, soft eyes would stare. Eyes like a first-time lover, like a face so tender it might cry. We were children then, you and I. Our grandmother, Mamita, was still alive. She stood at the top of the hill and yelled out our names. There was a river behind us, a small, quiet thing we would wade into when no one was watching. One time, you and the boys knocked over a beehive and ran so far up the hill it looked like you were flying. I wasn't with you that day. I was afraid of everything except the poems. They've always been here. You would leave for adventures in that country we considered wild, all that green, all those animals. I preferred my pen and paper, my bare feet on concrete, my hot coffee at 3 p.m., overhearing Tia gossip with Mamita, the green mangoes in their buckets, slowly changing like you and I. The summers I wore my adolescence like a yoke, my heart as heavy as clay. Love, a dangling fruit I ate to eat, and you remained a little girl, laughing into a sky we call home, but know nothing of. Thank you. And this next poem, I think it's important for us to know that sometimes, specifically with poetry. So I always say this in classes that I teach, that poetry is the we all come to poetry looking for our own reflection. So we're all asking the question of, does anybody else feel this? Like, hey, is anybody out there? Do you feel this at the same time? And then we all pick up books hoping to see ourselves in them in some kind of way, right? We pick up novels to escape. We pick up poetry to see ourselves reflected in it. And that being said, every writer isn't necessarily writing for an audience or to create visibility. To all those things come after. Those are perks. Those are pluses that come with our work, right? Many times, specifically with my own work, I wrote these poems for me to get through a bad day, to get through my body image issues that I may be having at the moment, to get through any kind of trauma that might be resurfacing. I learned I started using poetry as a coping tool as a little girl. Like when I learned how to write, I've been writing poetry since the first grade. And I grew up in a really complicated household. My parents were undocumented when I was young. My father was an alcoholic. I was a fat girl that everybody decided that wasn't okay for me to have that body, and all of these things. And so I've always been writing for for myself. And so I wrote this poem called Fat Girl Wants Love, and I like to share it, but I like to say that beforehand because I know that it resonates a lot with people, and I'm so glad that it does. But I want you all to be also aware of the fact that I wrote this poem for myself too. And that's important for us to have in context when we're reading, that we don't separate the person from the work. Because as women of color, we get separated from our bodies and our stuff all the time. And so for me, it's very important for me to like sink my nails into my work and be like, if you're reading this, you're reading me, and this is me and all of my lived experiences. Okay, poem. I promise I'm gonna talk less the more we get into the set. I am in love. I am a fat girl. Sometimes they are not the same thing. Sometimes they are. He tells me he loves me. He keeps me a secret. I love him. I am a fat girl. This is the same this time. He doesn't have a name. He has too many names. I'm good at loving in dark places. See his mouth, see his bedroom, see the way I still smile when he lets my hand go in public. I love hungry. Remember the time I ate my heart out in a movie theater? I was alone. Remember the time I threw up all my fast food in a shopping mall bathroom? I was alone. Remember the time I shoved my fingers down my throat? Remember I failed? Remember I wanted to die? Remember when he kissed another woman in front of her body, in front of me? How I wanted her body. How I wanted her too. Wanted to wear her, squeeze into her. I am a fat girl. I am in love. There is a joke here, and my body wants to answer. My uncles would say that they needed longer arms to hug me. They would laugh, and I would laugh too. I grew up thinking no one could hold me, but he did when no one was watching. And it's okay. I don't watch myself all the time either. I am in love. I am hungry. This is synonymous. I wonder if my stomach and heart live in the same place. I gained weight again. I cried during my lunch break at work. I ate ice cream on my way home. I haven't been touched in months. Someone rubs my back at an open mic and I feel the tears coming. I am a sad girl. I am a fat girl. I try and separate the two. I wear bright colors, things that say, watch me, say, come here, say, wear me like a ribbon, like a feather in your hat, something sweet on your lips, something sweet on your lips. I want to believe it. I choose to believe it. I say I am in love. I forget with who. I say myself, and most of the time, it is true. Thank you. So Corazon is divided into chapters, and the first chapter is the question like, am I worthy of being loved? Because there's all these reasons that you shouldn't love me. It talks about my depression, my anxiety. I have bipolar disorder, and so those are things that I deal with a lot. And then, but then the next section in the book is called The Fruit, and it's the love poem section. So I'm gonna read my favorite love poem from this section. And it's called Dulzura. And Sandra Cisneros also has a poem named Dulzura, and I didn't even realize it until today. Somebody shared it on Instagram, and I was just like, I have a poem with the same name, and it's almost like the same theme. I think in my head I knew what I was doing, but Jackie, I love you too, and Felicia, thank you. I'm looking at all the comments. Okay, somebody, Galaxy S9 and Android is typing in there. Okay. Mi corazón, cielito lindo, tesoro mío, mi amor, mi vida, mi alma, how beautiful it is to be loved in Spanish. So much color, so much taste. This is where I learned to love with abandon. When my mother called me when my lover, not my mother, when my lover called me his heart, his pretty sky, his treasure, his love, his life, his soul. Has anyone ever spoken to you this way? Covered you with kisses, naming you every precious thing they know? Have they filled you with so much dulce you thought you would burst? Mi vida, mi alma, oh, to love so much, you become the soul, skies, treasure, Corazón. Mm. Okay. And so then let me read one last poem de aquí. You know what? We'll visit this one en un ratito. So now we're going to go to Tesoro. And so Tesoro, oh my goodness, there's some books. Tesoro is my middle child, right? And just like every middle child, she be tripping. And sometimes, like, when I was writing her, I was just like, all right, we got to reel you in un poquito. We got to, like, this is a lot. It's asking a lot of questions. So I'm going to read this poem called Terremoto. And it's about me and my family. They lived in a tiny house with missing windows, so it always seemed as if their house was squinting. Its front yard a tangled mess of balding hair, rusty lawn furniture, old bicycles, and two lemon trees. The kitchen's linoleum sang beneath the mother's shifting weight as she washed dishes before bed. The father read his newspaper in the dining room, a bottle of vodka hidden beneath his chair, the radio tuned to sad, slow, honey thick boleros spread evenly over the dinner table. In the bedroom, the three sisters, wild even when silent. Their books, poems, and drawings covered every surface of the house. There were pets, sometimes a dog, sometimes a cat, sometimes a rabbit or turtle or pigeon, once for an hour, a baby possum until the mother made the second daughter give it back. At night, the tiny house became a jail cell with shouting matches and riots. Everyone pushed and pushed until the walls threatened to burst, but never did. The mother would return to her kitchen. The father would leave in search for more drink, and the three sisters would laugh loud over the music, over the hurt everyone fought over but never spoke about. They would howl their best wild howls, and the mother would threaten to come out of the kitchen with a sandal. The father would sigh, calling them terremotos, and they were. In that tiny house, they shook so good you couldn't tell if things were the way they were from disaster or because they liked it that way. Tamales. Mami, Tia Marina, Tia Reina, Tia Paz, Tia Morena, tias with names forgotten, borrowed tias, adopted tias, cousins old enough to be tias, all busy at the table. I'm a little girl with her curls pulled into a bun. Today I get to hold a ladle and scoop the masa onto the banana leaves. I pass it along to a tia who adds a salsa, another adds chicken, another potato, another ejote, another wraps it and drops it into a pot the size of my body. Mommy makes a joke. And no one brings presents. We have plenty of tamales to unwrap at midnight. And everyone laughs at the same joke she makes every single Christmas. The tias gossip, and I pretend not to listen. I watch as they laugh, stir pots, and smooth their hands over their aprons. My sisters call my name. I ignore them. I am learning magic today. And this is called Las Locas. And let me know if you're any of these locas. So I wrote this poem after there's a tia of mine. It's the first line in the poem. I mention her, but there's a tia of mine. There's a story of her, right? And every time the story is being told, she always is being made out to be like as this hysterical woman that like tried jumping out a window, right? And then but the older I've gotten, the more I've been like, I've learned to not trust people when they call women crazy, because I'm like, somebody did something somewhere because this doesn't match to the woman I know now. So I ended up finding out that my aunt was dealing with postpartum. And so she was dealing with postpartum, and then she was having an argument with her husband, which is my mother's brother, my uncle. And so instead of saying the whole story of this man was leaving his wife while she was having postpartum to go party, he was gonna go to a cantina, he was gonna go to a bar with his friends, and she's home with a baby and dealing with um uh, her mental health. And so it's easy to be like, oh yeah, your tia tried jumping out the window, and if I hadn't been there, she would have died, da, 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 da. And then now that I'm older, I'm like, no, my uncle was being like an inconsiderate husband. And like, but you know, you hear the stories the way they do, and so then that inspired this poem. And it's called Las Locas, and it's a list of locas in my family, and I'm pretty sure you have some of them in yours too. It's a reclaiming of a word that of an ableist word. Don't go around calling people that. The tia that threatened to jump off of the fire escape if her husband left to the bar. The one who chased her husband around the lemon trees with a frying pan. He had spent the rent money. He deserved it. The one who pretends to faint whenever she needs her sons to stay. The one who drinks beer and plays poker. The one who had an affair. The prima who let the ex-husband keep the children. The prima who's taken too many husbands to count. The one who joined the army and left for years. The one that doesn't show up for family parties. The one who talks about dating women without any hesitation. The childless one that drinks margaritas on Mondays. The one that asks her mother if she regrets not taking more lovers. The one who lives out of her suitcase, who does not cook or clean, who forgets to call, who wears red lipstick and crop tops to Thanksgiving dinner, the chismosa that no one tells the scandals to because she writes them all down. Tell me about that time again where you were free, when you made a mess and were forgiven the same way that we forgive the men. All right, so we're going to go into a love poem, and this is called She Names You Corazon. And I wrote this for myself when I needed to remind myself that my love is good, even though somebody didn't want it anymore. Corazon, she says. In that same voice, she says your name. You know some Spanish, mostly things your grandmother said to the TV. Your girlfriend speaks so much Spanish, your head spins. When she's with her family, she switches languages so quickly, you get whiplash. She's always asking questions about your life, like, how many cousins do you have? Which one is your best friend? Who's your favorite aunt? Who's your favorite uncle? Do you call your family in Puerto Rico? Where did your parents meet? Did your mother teach your father any Spanish? You know, back in El Salvador, is how she starts half of her stories. They're usually about her abuela she keeps forgetting is dead now, about the moon being a real moon there, not this soft bulb here. Says she experiences everything twice, even love, first in one language, then another. You forget which one comes first. When you make love, you search for words you haven't used since childhood, your tongue a hook in shallow water. Hardly anything surfaces, but you try. Corazón, I love you, she says. And you believe her. You wonder what stories of you she tells her family. She stretches her arm against yours. Look, baby, café con leche. Laughs and presses her mouth to your chest. You don't know if she's talking to you or to your heart. Months later, you break up. Suddenly, El Salvador is everywhere. A lady selling sweetbread on the subway calls you corazón, and the world goes gray for a second. You call her when you get home, but she doesn't answer. She is already gone. And one more poem from here, from Tesoro. A ver, vamos a ver. Okay, I know what we're gonna do. This is called Tesoro, and it's the poem that this book is named after. Cuando mi papi murió, Mami took all of his gold and tucked it into her closet. Yo me quedé con un anillo he gave me for my quinceañera, pero no me lo pongo. It's heavy, no me queda. It's always been more his than mine. Mamita Also had gold wrapped in a handkerchief mami guarda en su ropero. Back in El Salvador, las argollas, los aretes, las cadenas, things she brags about to other relatives porque ella lo heredó por ser la más preferida. Too many of my stories empiezan con la muerte. I write best when I write about grief. Por todo lo que he perdido, things I am terrified of forgetting, lo que se fue, what haunts me, lo que quedó, treasures I wrap away safely. Tengo 11 años de no ir a Salvador. I've been told it is too dangerous there now, and I can't taste the mangoes anymore. Y ya no me acuerdo de las milpas, o del mar, or the dirt beneath my toes, y tal vez ya no soy de allá. Maybe I'm all American now, pero yo nunca quise eso. Is this how it works? Gentrification, colonization. Vienen, aunque uno no lo quiera. How do I resist being taken? ¿Cómo le hago para sentirme less lost? ¿A quién le cuento de la Mara Salvatrucha or the airplanes with their tiny seats de mi español tartamudeado? All my hair products in my suitcase y mi inglés que no tiene any periods or commas. In mis libros, I could only read in English porque el español takes too much work. Me pregunta mi amigo, were you born in El Salvador? Y yo le digo que no. He says, then Yesika, you are an American. Y yo le digo que no. I write this poem half in English, mitad en español, to show him I'm not really una americana or completely anything at all. Pero el inglés siempre ha sido lo más lindo que he tenido. Mira mi niña, papi would say. Good English. So good. Y yo sonreía porque logré ser linda, aunque sea por un ratito, but what was I washing out of my mouth? Mommy keeps all of my baby teeth in a small jar tucked in her closet, same place she keeps my father's gold, my grandmother's jewelry, all these things I grew inside of me when my only language was Spanish, things I pulled out because I was told to, was told something new was coming, something more permanent, something more me, but my teeth are still there. If you shake the jar, they will rattle. If you shake me, I will rattle. If you love me, even a little, I will call you corazón. It will be small and beautiful like that first tooth I pulled out of me. Look at it. Aquí está. Es mío. Yo lo crecí. Aquí, adentro de mí. Remind me again. What language did I begin telling you this story? Thank you. Ooh, that poem. There used to be a time where I couldn't do that poem without shaking. So thank you for holding space for me. And then Hermosa, and this is my last one, and I'm gonna power through just so that I want to end this right on the time that we decided, so that I could talk to you at the Q&A and we could have a little bit of that. So no, not a lot of banter in the middle, pero we'll talk more. Hermosa. Papi bought my sisters and I uniforms. Lined us up on the front steps, tallest to shortest, miren a mis hermosuras. Took a Polaroid and drove us to school. We were the only kids in white polos and blue shorts in a school that did not require uniforms. I am sure this is a metaphor for many things, like his drinking, mommy's legal status, their service jobs, the smart daughters they were raising, 3 beautiful medallions, polished, new, our good English in our backpacks, heavy as bricks. Metro. The safest seat is behind the bus driver. You can find your way anywhere by asking. If you get lost, take any bus that says downtown LA. The sun sets west and home is in the other way. The 4 runs all night. Rapids don't make every stop. If you're going to cry, choose a window seat. Headphones and a book will protect you from unwanted conversations with men. If you're going to cry, stare down at your phone screen. Have someone call you during the late night rides. If you're going to cry, do it quietly. If you're going to cry, do it into a sweater or backpack or purse. If you're going to cry, leave a trail of tears between work and home. Let them wash your tired feet. Cry for the heartbreak, the shitty job, the dying parent, the angry friend, the loneliness. Give the city your sorrow. Rain is always welcome in Los Angeles. I wasn't gonna use the curse word, but I couldn't find another word to describe those kind of jobs. So that's the only cuss word you're gonna hear tonight. So I'm sorry if you have if I accidentally taught your child a new word today, but it's okay. The next poem is gonna be ya casi. Your parents say goodbye while they're still sitting at the dinner table. Then they stand up with their keys in their hands and then they'll say it again. And then they move to the door and say it some more. Then to the driveway. When the car turns on, your Theo leans a hand on the window while they keep saying goodbye. Mommy forgets something and runs back inside. They all stand by the car some more. You fall asleep for a little bit. You wake up and you're still there. You get back out of the car to play with your cousins. Papi calls you back in. Theo smacks the car one time. Thea waves and you know you're leaving for real. Finally, but you wish you had kept saying goodbye for a little bit longer. When you grow up, and you are full-blown adult in love, and that love goes sour. You threaten to leave. You sit at the table and say, I'm gone. Some days pass and you stand with your keys in your hand. You swear you're going to do it. Weeks later, you move to the door, say goodbye some more, make it to the driveway. Your lover leans in, promises the right things in one hand, with one hand on your thigh. You linger, but you swear it's only for a little bit. You grow numb and forget about breaking up. It's like you fall asleep, settle into staying. You're all in again. But remember why you have to go. This time, it is real. Finally, you are gone. But you wish your goodbye had taken just a little bit longer. Ooh, sad love poems. Um, I'm gonna read one more love poem, and then we're gonna close out the night. And there's so many other poems that you could check out at the Santa Ana Public Library. And you could read all of the ones I didn't get to read today. Yes. So this is going to be in Spanish and it's called Tontita. And I wrote it to myself. But if you are a tontita, a tontito, a tontiex, a tonti, I don't know. Well, one of those variations. This is for you too. And I had to write it to myself in Spanish because everything is more real in Spanish. And then everything's more tender and everything is magnified in Spanish. And I kind of needed to check myself in Spanish. And maybe you needed to. Venía aquí mi niña tonta, mi lloroncita, mi corazoncito roto. ¿Por qué lo quieres? ¿Por qué lo buscas? ¿Qué te dio que te tiene tan perdida? Claro que lo amas, ¿cómo no lo vas a amar? Si él fue el primero que te dijo que quería todo lo que tú has querido. Yo sé que es bonito consentir a quien uno ama, tener a quien cuidar, pero mi niña loca, mi palomita triste, mi cielito gris, ese hombre no quería ser querido, él lo que buscaba era olvidar y tú, mi amor, tú no eres el olvido. ¿Te acuerdas de tu papi? De ese amor tan grande, de las tardes bajo los palos de limones y tú y él hablando de las noticias o de algún deporte o de un compañero de trabajo y de vez en cuando tú, chiquita linda, le preguntabas, papá, ¿cómo se dice tal cosa en español? Y él te contestaba casi riendo y tú seguías con tu cuento, ¿te acuerdas de ese amor? ¿Cómo puedes amar a alguien que no te puede dar lo mismo. Corazón, dime qué te trae tan mareada por un hombre que jamás te amó como te enseñaron a amar. Dime que yo no lo entiendo. All of my poems are about love. All of my poems are about some boy. All of my poems are about my fat. All of my poems are about my Spanish, my Salvador, my English, my Los Angeles, my pre-gentrification Silver Lake, my Echo Park before the food trucks and yoga parties, my belly swinging by the vegan restaurants, my double chin laughing in overpriced coffee shops, my minimum wage paycheck, my staying too long in too many places, my poor taste in men, my dating, my ex-boyfriends and their girlfriends, my niece and her laughter, my niece and all of her questions, my niece and her little hands pressed against my face, my niece and her hands wet with the tears on my face, my depression, my secret sadness, my ocean, always asking for my body, my anxiety, whispering my name at the nape of my neck, my hands, and how they listened and slammed against my body, and how no one ever saw the bruises because no one ever saw my body. All of my poems are about my brown girl body. Everyone has an opinion about this fat body. I have to fight to love it every day. Body, my big fat, beautiful body, my red lipstick smile, my curly Salvadoran hair, my mommy's hair, and my hair. Oh, my mommy, my puppy, my drunk and angry papi, my papi yelling out my name in the middle of the night, my papi and his belt against my skin, my papi's belt and how it whistled in the air before finding my skin, my long nights counting his snores, my grieving him 10 years before he died, my watching him die, my exhale when he died, my life after he died, my good life after he died, my grief, my guilt, my love. All of my poems are about my parents, my hardworking migrant parents, my Saturday afternoon listening to Juan Gabriel parents, my early Sunday morning math parents, my sisters and I in our prettiest dresses. Oh, my sisters, my first friends, my first saviors, my first lesson in getting the hell over it, my singing at the top of their lungs until mommy yells, "Shut the hell up, this isn't a musical, sisters." My no one gets it like you do, sisters. You see, all of my poems are about love. The times that it came in floods and the years. Oh, the years that I forgot what love was. All of my poems are collection plates I fill and fill and fill and fill, and I have yet to come up empty, and I don't think I ever will. Thank God for my poems, for how they always find me, for my heart that believes them, and these hands that always receive them. Thank you. And that's my set.
Oh my goodness gracious. Thank you so much, Miss Yesika,
Oh
for
no.
gracing us with these poems. I did not expect to be crying on a 1 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon, but here we are. Goodness gracious. I am very excited because we get to ask you a couple of questions, if you don't mind. During the registration process, we opened up the form for people to submit questions. And I have a couple of here for you. So let's go ahead and get started. The first, someone asks, I'm taking a gap semester to write. Are there any books you could recommend that were or are instrumental to your writing? I know you mentioned Sandra Cisneros, but are there any other like kind of seminal books that you would encourage people to read?
Yeah, so there's two things that I encourage people, right? One is to start thinking of yourself as a writer, as an artist, and start cultivating it that way. And so a book that helped me really early on, years ago, to like really take myself seriously was The Artist's Way. And so The Artist's Way is really dope, and it gives you like there's exercises and like you go on self dates. It's really beautiful. It's a really beautiful book. But also I would invite you to just find books that call to you, that resonate with
Mm.
you. And if you're having like try on different styles, like write a poem after a poem that already exists, like try on that, like that person's writing style. Like there was a period I woke up from it. It was before I was woke. Um, I was really into Charles Bukowski. I was a super Bukowski fan, but it
As we
was,
all do.
yeah, like I think we all have to go through like a mandatory Bukowski period. But I mean, there were many things of why I felt drawn to this man. One, he's from LA. Two, an alcoholic, which is like a thing in my family. But also, he was this unconventionally attractive man who was able to make this huge career for himself. And I was just like, well, that fool's ugly. I'm not. So maybe like I somebody wants to hear my poems. But you take the poems that speak to you and try them on and write your own versions of them, and then little by little your writing will stretch and reach in different ways. And also like I keep a book in my purse all the time, so when I hear a word that I don't know, or just a phrase that sounds beautiful that somebody wrote and said in conversation or whatever, I wrote it down. So it's about training your eyes and your ears to find poetry everywhere, and so, or to find just beauty in things, and that makes your writing so much better. And also live, please, like go live, go do something that inspires you to come home and create. Because if all we're doing is writing and writing and writing, you start running on fumes, and then your work isn't what it needs to be. And that's kind of like this last year was my living year, and so I'm kind of like getting ready to go back into like writing. But yeah.
As someone who has graduated with a writing degree, I always tell people writing is an exercise. You have to, the way you go to the gym and you exercise your muscles, you have to exercise your brain and you have to exercise your hand in writing. So that's marvelous. I love that. We have another question here. What advice would you have for a first generation daughter constantly battling between trying to be faithful Catholic and enjoying life?
I think that it's hard to do both because the Catholic Church won't let you. But I think it's always we we can't worship our parents' gods. So whatever faith your family is from, whatever that is, you have to build your own relationship with it. You can't have the relationship that your family indoctrinated into you, that brought you into, right? There's a lot of stuff that are tradition and that you will share with your family, but I think you need to build your own relationship with whatever. In this sense, I'm going to say God because we're talking about the Catholic God, right? But like you have to build your own relationship with God and what that means to you, because if you're chasing what you think, if you're chasing the expectations and everything, you're not gonna, then it's no different than the other thousand obligations your parents have imposed on you, and then it just becomes a chore. Then you're just going to church because you have to go to church or whatever. I used to be a very devout Catholic. I wanted to be a nun at some point, and then it got weird, and then I got my first boyfriend, and I was just like, I didn't make some calculations, I need to figure some stuff out. And well, that didn't happen. But I remember I was in confession once, and I was crying over how guilty I felt, how I don't feel as connected to God as I used to, and I'm not gonna marry him anymore, I broke up with him, is he okay, like are we gonna be good? And then the priest told me, he said, Jessica, all love wants to do is be with the beloved. So as long as you have even an ounce of love for God, you're good. You're fine. And I don't know if he was aware of the freedom he gave me in that moment. Because I said, oh, if God is love and all I have to do is love him in return, then I get to figure out what that looks like. And I get to figure out what that feels like and how that's going to show up in my life. And so then now my I'm not a practicing Catholic anymore for many reasons. It just ethically I can't be for my own ethics, but it did at that time, it was an answer that I needed a lot. And I'm still a very spiritual person who still has a lot of faith in love in general, and I think that that's what we all need to individually, like, what gives you faith, what makes you feel safe in bed at night, and what makes you feel like you're walking in purpose during the day. And if that's the current religion you're in, fantastic. If it isn't, guess what, you could read about other ones and find what connects. Like, it's not we're not we're not in colonization times anymore, y'all. We can choose what we want.
I love that. Finding your own space, your own, not having to, conform to your family's beliefs. I love that. Um, we have another question here. Any suggestions where to begin publishing your work as a poet? I have finally gained the courage to do so. I know you work with Not a Cult, but how did that process begin? Or what advice would you give to people who are looking at reaching out to publishers?
Absolutely. So I want to take the idea of being published, being this like as one thing. When you share your work on social media, you're publishing your work. You're publishing onto Instagram, onto Twitter, onto Facebook, onto your blog, onto your website, whatever it is. You're published. You're publishing. So that's one. That's a quick, accessible way to get your work out to a bunch of different people. And then there's journals, literary journals you could submit to, and then those are different. That's something different. And usually that's the traditional way folks submit to journals. You get a lot of rejections because it's the name of the game and a lot of that back and forth, and then somehow you end up building a relationship with a publishing house or whatever. The way that it happened for me was that sometimes if like people ask me, it feels like it was magical or a miracle or something. I've been sharing my work online ever since we got a computer in my house when I was 18. So I've been on the internet for 18 years, just posting my work wherever I could find communities or websites that felt like it made sense for me. And little by little, like, I've been able to build community for myself. And so once, and then I was performing and going to open mics and all that stuff in person because that was available to me. And I had a couple of things go viral, and then did zines. Zines are the best way for you to get your work out to people without having to deal with publishers. Chapbooks in the poetry world are called chapbooks, but they're most commonly known as zines, and it's tiny little books. And I self-published 3 of them before I ever had a book. And because I had all 3 of them and they sold very well, and you get all the money yourself, you're not sharing it with anybody else. Not a Cult had already begun in LA, and they had published a few of my friends. So we were in community with each other, and I saw that they ordered 3 of my zines, and I was just like, aha, they're looking at my work. And then we built the relationship we have, and it's been a really beautiful, beautiful relationship. So my suggestion would be, I always like when we're trying to get into the publishing world, into the literary world, that feels like a massive mountain. So what I always say whenever I have the opportunity to say is, I have no interest in climbing the mountain. What I want to do is I want to teach the mountain how to kneel. So create a world with your writing in whatever way that makes sense for you, and pour yourself into it and push yourself to become a better, like, just always be a better writer. I'm always pushing myself to be a better writer, but your work will call in whoever needs to be called in. If you are really, really, really putting it forward with an open heart and with the right intentions, it will draw folks to it because folks want to see themselves in it. So, and then once you build a community, guess what? These publishers want access to our communities because they don't know how to get them without us. It's not how it used to be anymore, where you published a book and selling 500, 1,000 copies was fine. Like, they want to be able to sell more. So, and not that you need to have a bunch of followers for that either. You just build genuine community, and everything will fall into place.
And we're so lucky to reside in Southern California, where a strong writing community is available to us.
Yes.
And I always encourage people to take advantage of that, to really immerse themselves in, and you're based in Silver Lake in the Echo Park area, and that
Yeah.
has such strong roots. I used to love walking the boulevards, and people are just selling zines in their boutiques. It's very readily available, but you have to keep your eyes open for it. Um, and just the work that goes into it. You've been doing this for 18 years. It's not like I'm going to post something and then tomorrow a publisher is going to find it and I'm going to blow up. It's not like that. You put in the
Yeah,
time.
it was so many different, like, I used to think, I'm like, Tumblr is gonna be where I'm gonna build my community and I'm gonna go viral on Tumblr, because Tumblr was at the time, there was a time when Tumblr was skyrocketing. Rupi Kaur, if you haven't ever heard of Rupi Kaur, I invite you to look her up. Rupi Kaur she sold millions of books, of poetry books, but she started off with a Tumblr account that did amazing, and then self-published her first book. She self-published Milk and Honey at first, although she did go to design school, graphic design, she didn't know all those things or whatever. But guess what? You have all those resources in your community. I don't know any of that. But I have a best friend that does. And I was like, hey, Joel, can I treat you to Thai food? And then like we could work out on the layout of this chapbook. And then he was like, yeah. And then he did all 3 chapbooks for me. He was my first editor. And I always say that. And so like use the resources around you, use the community. There's an abundance and wealth amongst us and our resources. We think that we need to enter these white spaces and have access to them to be able to build things for us. And white institutions were built intention of remaining white institutions. And so like let them remain that, and then build a universe, build a world. If you build a world so beautiful and that thrives, folks are going to want to come visit it. Folks are going to want to come live in it. You know, everybody's trying to go to Mars. Build your Mars, and then don't let Elon Musk colonize it though. But yeah.
That was so beautiful. Thank you so much. We have just a few more minutes here, so let me see if I can squeeze in another question or
Yeah,
two.
I'll try to answers.
Let's see here. Here's a good one. What is your ritual to deal with heartbreak?
Okay, so 4 things, right? One is I cry a lot, and then I watch things that make me cry. Like I get it out, right? You gotta get it out, sweat it out, cry it out. Also I journal. So whenever I feel like I can't, I'm like, so I start, okay, so I had like a huge heartbreak 2013, and that I thought I wasn't going to survive. And I was like, I'm never going to get over this man. And so then I wrote day 1, I miss him. I can't live without him. I wrote some sappy, whatever, right? Like all of those feelings. Day 2, day 3, day 4. And whenever or day 2.5, sometimes I would go back to the journal like multiple times in the day when I felt like I just needed to communicate. Like I just felt like I couldn't get through it. And then one day I went back, and it was like I hadn't written in there in 20 days. And I said, for 20 days, I've been okay. And that was so reassuring. But then that day I wasn't okay. So I wrote in the journal. And then I came back maybe like a month later. And then I came back. And then so then I was able to see my growth and see how I had been feeling and healing and processing things, you know. Also go back to the things you had before you had your heart broken. Your homegirls, your friends are still there, your family is still there if you have a good relationship with your family. All of your hobbies and all of the things you loved before that were there. It's kind of like you wake up from a trance of being in love and you come out of the bubble and you kind of look around in the world and you're like, what have y'all been up to? And then also dance it out, sweat it out. And also like if you wear makeup and you sit and you put on your makeup and you put on the things that make you feel beautiful, it's kind of hard to be heartbroken when you feel like you look fly. And so just pour extra care into you if you feel you have the energy to, and like go sit somewhere so people could stare at you and admire you, you know, like go to a coffee shop or go to the park or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think the best thing for heartbreak is understanding that it's gonna hurt and it's okay.
I love that you mentioned hobbies, going back to the hobbies that you had before, like celebrating your personal passions. Maybe you didn't have time to do that in a relationship, and you get to go back to it and you really get to celebrate yourself through the things that you love to do. Let's see if we can get one more here.
Let's go.
Let's do it. This one, I really like this. How did you start practicing self-love and self-care? And how do you advise starting that process?
I'm going to be really honest. My first big act of radical self-love was taking my ass to therapy. I used to catfish. That's a whole other conversation. But I realized one day I was just like, yo, what is happening? I have a whole life. And my career was kind of starting. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like, why am I still going on the phone and pretending to be somebody else and acting like I don't have hella love in my life just because I don't have romantic love? And so then like I called my a friend at the time, and then I was like crying and telling her everything, and she's like, Jessica, this is beyond my pay grade. This is beyond, you need to go to therapy. And so I jumped on the phone and I looked for a therapist, and then every Saturday I was sitting in that office crying my eyes out, talking about all these things, doing the exercises we came with each other. And at the same time I was doing things to like just be good to my body. Like that's when I started wearing lipstick for the first time. That's when I started wearing brighter colors. I started getting my nails done. And not that you need all those things to love yourself, but those were things that I enjoyed that made me feel more vibrant and more myself. And then the crop top showed up and all of that. But I know that therapy isn't accessible to all of us, but I think that if we look for professional help outside of us, and it happens in many ways, many of our pastors and priests had training to counsel. There's hotlines now. There's therapy groups. If you are dealing with addiction or having a family member, there's AA, there's Al-Anon, there's Alateen, and all of those things. So there's so many resources. And so the first thing that you have to do for yourself is something big, something radical that shakes you to your core, that tells your body, oh, we're doing something different now. This is scary and this is different, but this is good for us. It's like eating your veggies, but like for your soul.
Absolutely. I myself am a huge advocate for mental health and therapy, and I always encourage people, even if they don't feel like they need it, quote unquote, go anyway. It's just like getting a checkup at the doctor. The only thing you're checking up is your brain and your heart, and just aligning that. And we're so lucky to have so many resources in this day and age for mental health. And so I agree. I really encourage that. But I do believe that is all the time we have today.
That was a good question to
Unfortunately,
end on.
it really was. So I just wanted to go ahead and just give you the biggest thank you for joining us here today and making yourself available for our library and our community. I want to encourage everyone who is here right now, please go follow Yesika. She is on most social media platforms under Yesika Star. Go follow Not a Cult. They're constantly publishing great work. And they absolutely deserve it. And then go follow us too at the Santa Ana Public Library. We're always coming out with new events, new programs, things like that. We're very excited to announce that we do have Yesika's books in our collections. And so if you like what you heard today, please give us a call. We can go ahead and set these up on hold for you. And we have our curbside checkout to pick these up. But before we end today, Yesika, is there anything you would like to say?
Yes, I want to tell everybody in the chat that I love you, and I really have enjoyed being here. Y'all have been so beautiful in the comments. And also thank you for making me the first program you do, working at the Santa Ana Public Library. This was really phenomenal. I felt really cared for, and you cultivated such a beautiful space. And yeah, and who would have known that we'd be doing an event together when I met you at another event
This is
before.
very true. Jessica and I met each other at a Mujeres Market event in LA, very briefly. But look at where we are now. Look at how that works.
I was very delirious from NyQuil, but I'm not today, so I'm present. But thank you so much for having me, for the whole rest of the team too. It's been really a pleasure, and thank you all, and support your libraries, please, y'all. Check out my books, and if there's ever a writer who you really love and the library doesn't carry your book, let your librarians know. They could make it possible to have it in their stuff, and it also helps the writers too, to have their work out there where they can be seen.
Absolutely.
And thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone who is here to join us.
Melly, I wanted to remind everyone that this recording with Yesika today will be available on our website soon. So if somebody in your family or friends or circle was not able to register or be with us today, they can certainly take advantage of that recording soon.
Beautiful.
Well, thank you so much, everybody. I hope you all have a good day and be good to each other. We're going to hang out for a little bit, but we'll see you later at the library.